process your relationship before you move forward. Because it's like moving from one house to another house and bring every dirt with it into that new house. It's ludicrous, absolutely ludicrous. Like, why would you go from one dirty old house to a new house and bring all that dirt into? No, you want to start clean, fresh, and that's how you should start with every new relationship. I process, I get rid of all that dirt, everything that's happened that I don't like, and then when I get to the new relationship, I feel great because I've created this new whole house that I'm ready for. I want to live in. I want to be.
Welcome, Khamis.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being on the show.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, Khamis, you're an old friend of my dad's.
Yes.
We've connected a few times. You've known me since I was how old? Like,
young.
Young.
I'm actually surprised how much time has gone by.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was like maybe 14, 15. I just come to Canada.
Yes.
Yeah.
When was it? 2009. 2009?
Yeah.
Oh my days. That's a long time.
Yeah. So yeah, just tell me a bit about yourself. Introduce yourself.
Name's Khamis. Most people call me Enzo, especially in Canada. 45. I work in film, and my favorite thing to do is just be a parent. Like, that's the one thing I find the easiest my whole entire life, being a parent. Yeah, to a 4-year-old son, right? So, as far as life goes, I didn't see that one coming, but it's my favorite thing to do. As cliches go, it does change your life a substantial amount. So yeah, that's for the most part, that's the biggest thing. That's the most important thing for me right now, is being a dad.
So how old are you now?
I'm 45 now.
Nice.
I'm 45 now. Yeah.
And I'm 27.
27.
So when we met, you might have been like 32 or something.
Oh, easily.
Yeah.
So that's what? Yeah. Yeah, because that's 10 years ago plus a couple. Yes. That's a long journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll get into parenting and what it's like being a new dad, but let's start somewhere near the beginning.
Okay.
So, because really what I'm trying to do is figure out how I can build a good life.
Right.
Be a good man, whatever that means.
Okay.
Discovering that.
Okay.
So what do you think healthy masculinity looks like?
Healthy masculinity is the ability to be flexible, the ability to actually be authentic to yourself, and the ability, because men get weathered as time goes, and men become rigid, right? And men stop growing. I feel like you need to learn to be able to grow, because because things change. Sometimes what you think you know, you don't know. And you have to be able to be willing to accept that and say, you know what, I was wrong. That was something at that point in time I thought and felt was right, and probably was. But also too, it's like as 4 or 5 years time goes by, things change and your perspective changes and your groups change. So healthy masculinity, I feel, is the ability to understand. It's not just about, it's ability to accept your feelings, ability to be able to empathize with other people, with your partners, with your kids, with your cousins, friends, siblings, relatives, all of those things. But the whole question is, what's masculine? Is a big question. What's masculine look like? What's it supposed to? Is it being identified by your physical stature? Is it has to do with your what a man says or does, or occupation, right? First, we need to understand what that definition looks like currently, and then what is toxic and what is non-toxic, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
Sounds good. But flexibility,
empathy,
empathy
absolutely.
seem to be the two ones that stood out for you.
Absolutely. Like not being pressured by society, but being guided by your own feelings, thoughts, processes.
So independent thinking, independent action.
Absolutely. Independence is a key thing too. Yeah.
So what has your journey been like to develop those traits?
I've been fortunate enough to be able to, I think the biggest thing is, honestly, being exposed to different types of people. Like growing up in a household full of women, growing up in a household full of different cultures and ethnicities, religions. So that in itself allows you to understand that your biases and your projections onto how people should act is completely thwarted when you have these experiences interactions with different people who are different from you, right? So it's allowed me, so my journey has allowed me to be very well experienced, not completely, because there's always room for growth, and that's going to happen, but having same-sex what's it called, relationships, having different sex relationships, like friendships wise, right? Having best friends who are women, having older male role models, having older female role models, having people from different backgrounds, like we have a secular household, so that allows us to understand different religions. So from there to now, it allows me to be flexible with how I view the world, right? And traveling is a big one too. It's like when you expose yourself to different parts of the world, you get to see different things, and get to meet different people, get to learn different ways of life. You have an empathy for yourself, for others, for the world. Like it goes from micro to macro, and allows you to evolve, right? What you think you knew staying in this box, and then you go to this neighborhood, or in this neighborhood, this is how people think, and then you go to that neighborhood and experience, you're like, oh shoot, we think the same, but we feel like we're different, but we're actually the same. We just come from different angles, right? So I don't know if that answers the question.
It's a good start.
It's a good start, right? So
you mentioned something interesting that I want to go back to. You said you grew up in a household of multiple cultures, ethnicities, and with more women than men. What was that like?
It was normal, but it allows you, as men become, like in a culture where men have a hard, well, I shouldn't say a culture, but there's certain subcultures where the men find it hard to talk to women. But when you grow up in a household full of women, they're just people.
You get used to it.
You get used to it. It's not even you get used to it. That's what it is.
It's normal.
It's normal, right? So in any setting where there's women, it's easy to talk to because that has been your experience, and and it translates very well, right?
So how did you end up growing up in a household like that? That seems pretty uncommon.
You know what? You don't choose who you're born to, right? And that's the only answer I have. It's just a household full of women, right?
Who is it? Like your mom, sisters?
Mom, sisters,
aunts?
mostly aunts, cousins.
Yeah.
That was predominantly it, and most of the time it's the aunts who raise you, or your older cousins who raise you. So you get that sense of that's how it is, right? So, and also general and cultural and generational, because, and I don't know, there's a few cultures like this where after a certain age, the men bring you into the fold, right? But until then, they let the women raise you, right? And you get a better sense of things from that perspective. And then by the time the men bring you, but your formative years are been with the women, right?
There is some scientific basis for this in terms of hormones, human hormones.
Okay.
So it turns out oxytocin is the main bonding hormone, especially for women with their children. So it's like the bonding chemical of trust and love. Like if you hug someone, you're probably secreting oxytocin through that process.
Okay.
Men can secrete it too, but it's not their main way of forming bonds. So my understanding is that women, mothers, they bond with their kids right away as babies.
Right.
Men, they tend to bond more deeply when they can do things with their child. Like they can play catch, or they can like build something together. They can do shared projects. They can teach things to their child. They can show them things and so on. So usually men begin to bond with their child more when they're like 4 or 5.
Okay.
When they can talk more.
Okay.
There's still some bonding between father and child, but it's not as much in the early stages. But you're actually father to a 4-year-old, so maybe you can contradict that with your experience. Or how do you feel about it?
Father to a 4-year-old. He just turned 4. I think Honestly, it's the easiest thing I've ever actually had to do. Like, by easiest thing, meaning it's like the one thing I'm naturally good at.
So it just
Like,
feels right.
It feels absolutely right.
Yeah.
Like, but also reflecting on things. Like, if just like, let me equate it to something you want to be good at, or something you want to be different. So it's like you play sports. You look at how your old coach did it. Now you become the coach. So I'll be better at coaching, comparable to my old coach. So it's like, my dad was a good man, but he wasn't there physically all the time, right? So my thing is that I want to see how my son's life would be different if I'm there constantly.
Right.
So I co-parent. I'm there. I've been there since he was born. I'm there as much as I can. By much is like, I co-parent. So I have him on the weekends and on Wednesdays. So it's pretty much 50-50. And just being present is a thing. It's like raising him, knowing how to change his diet, from knowing how to change his diapers, feeding him, putting him to sleep, and that continuous cycle. Like reading his signs, knowing his behaviors, knowing what his likes are, what it is at this age. I guarantee you, a lot of men don't know what their children are at this age, right? Like, okay, what time, how to soothe them, how to read their moods, how to gauge your moods as well, and just actually understanding what this baby, from a baby to a toddler to pre-K looks like. You have a better understanding as to what women go through, right? There's a lot more empathy when you understand it. It's like, on top of raising a child and keeping up with your own household, those are massive undertakings. It consumes your whole, I can actually say that it does consume your whole entire life, your day, your week, But there's joy in it, right? Because your child is not responsible for coming into this world. You're responsible for them. And to absolutely say, you know what, my life is now more for him. So I've got to do all the things that I need for him or for her, whichever. Right? So the journey has been very, very rewarding on so many levels, right? But you know what, though? I give a lot of credit, although I give credit to my parents and the women who raised me, and, not so much the men, but the women. But also to my dog. Because I'd never had a dog before, but I didn't realize how much work having a dog is.
I was about to ask about Marlo, because I realized that maybe Marlo prepared you for the being responsible for another living being aspect.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think and I don't care what people say, but I think the fundamental thing about having kids, or with Marla, was when I got it, everybody wanted to give you advice as to how to raise her. And I took it, and you're brand new. And so you take all this advice, but that advice starts to consume you, and it starts to frustrate you because you're using so many different techniques, but you forget to use your own instinct, right? And by the time by the time I settled in, she was already grown, and I missed that. People try to make her grow up faster than she was, and we're talking about Marlo.
Yes,
right?
your puppy.
Yeah.
At the time.
Yeah. Let them be a puppy. The puppy phase goes by really fast, just like with kids. Let kids be kids, because once that phase is gone, they're adults for the rest of their lives. And I think it's very important for people or parents to actually let kids be kids, whether it's let them make noise, let them get into dirt, because they will get out of it. Sure, there's guidance that's needed, but at the same time, let's look at them for what they are. They're kids. They're not adults in small bodies. They will get to that phase, and they need to just enjoy life. That phase where there's no bills, no responsibilities. Right. And that's one thing I learned from Marlo. Now that my son has benefited, is because I took a lot from raising that puppy to now. I have more patience. I understand not every advice can be applicable to your situation. Patience, but you also have to you have to really trust yourself, right? Some things feel right because this is your person, they're from the same cloth, but you have to feel right about, like, you have to trust your own gut instincts, right? Second guessing yourself is a detriment to society these days. Like we constantly want to second guess. There's always an expert that you completely negate your own
Authority, maybe.
authority. Absolutely, like
You have to learn to trust your instinct.
your own instinct. Like
Right.
you people forget their own instinct, and it's important for you to find that, trust that instinct and run with it. Right? You might be wrong, but you very well might be right. Right? Because your circumstance is different than mine. My 4 bedrooms is different than your 4 bedroom, or my 4 walls is different than your 4 walls in a different city with a different neighbor. All those things with different food supply. It's different, right? And your instincts, you know your environment. I know my environment. Let's run with it. Let's trust ourselves, right? You know, it's just like, to me, that advice is like putting seasoning on your meal. Like, we both want turkey, but we want 2 different. We will approach it with 2 different tastes or 2 different types of seasoning. You get me? So that to me is like, my journey with parenting has just been relatively easy, comparable to a lot of people. And to tie it up, it's just because my puppy, my dog, she's a senior now, helped in that journey.
How old is Marlo now?
She's 11.
She's 11.
She's 11 now.
You've had her since you were 34. Wow.
Yes. It's been like, it's a lot of work. Like having a dog, having a puppy is a lot of work.
I remember when you told me to get a dog, and that's what I was thinking. I was thinking, am I ready for that much work?
Yes. You manage, and that's the thing. I remember somebody saying that is the simplest advice. And we were talking in the bus, and she is one of those things when people say, hey, you know, am I able to? Actually, you know what? Yeah, you put everything to the side and say, you know what, I'll manage. And it really, truly is. It's like everything you do, like in doubt, you're like, you know what, I'll manage. And will you manage to take care? Yes, because they rely on you. And there's so much more rewards for it. Makes you more responsible, makes you more caring, makes you more community oriented, because then you see, you understand how other dog owners are, how other people, and you understand what they're suffering to or what they have to go through. It allows you to put boundaries because on yourself as well. It's like, I used to, now if I have to go somewhere, I have to consider Marlo's needs, absolutely. Before anything else, like, yeah, I can come over, but I can't stay that long. Or can she come over? If she can't come over, then I can't come over, right? So smaller things, right? Sacrifices and compromises are made. So
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get a dog. Maybe just 1. Maybe 2.
I like Evan and Beatrix's dogs now.
Yeah?
And they're my neighbors, so I can see them whenever.
Okay.
Basically. So yeah, I'll experience doghood secondhand.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, before I have a kid, I should try maybe foster parenting or something like that.
Yeah.
To get a feel for real parenting.
Yes.
Not just my imagination of it.
Yeah.
Because I have a feeling it will be both a lot more harder in reality and also a lot more rewarding.
Absolutely.
Both. And I have to experience it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, there's parenting by yourself and there's parenting with a co-parent or with a partner.
Right.
I've never experienced the latter, but so I've always just co-parented.
So you mean the former?
Yeah.
Single parenting. You are co-parenting.
I am co-parenting.
Which is good. Yeah, right. You have help.
Yeah. No, before I didn't have help. Well, I mean,
you're taking turns.
Yeah, we take turns, but actually living together as a team.
You're not living together. Yeah, so that means you have to be the one to wake up at night every time.
Whatever the arrangement is, right? But I've never experienced that one where it's like you live with your partner and your parent. You know, I've never had that part.
But you are experiencing it now because you're living with your girlfriend.
No, we're not living together.
You're not living together?
No, we're not living together.
Oh.
No.
I didn't know that.
No, we spend a lot of time together, but we don't,
Because I was remembering the story that you both shared about, or I think you shared about, like, she told you not to put pillows between you both in bed.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh, that was what's it called? Because we're talking about what that might mean, these subtleties that happen.
Communication in relationships.
Communication, but also things that happen in the past that will come up into, I might do this because I need it for my posture. Right. But for her, it would mean something different because that meant there's a barrier between, in her past relationship, that meant there was a barrier between, you know, I go about, oh, it's just because the chiro told me to put a pillow here and that's what it is. But to her, it's like, that was a trigger for something else.
So it's about realizing your triggers and communicating them so you can both grow together.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're a healing presence for each other.
Absolutely.
In a psychological way.
Yeah, and also being flexible to understand that we're coming, like at this age too, it's like, as opposed to we're in my 20s, like if I find a partner in my 20s, we don't have a lot of baggage. By the time you hit 45 and you're meeting somebody, they've had either divorce, had multiple long relationships, whether good or negative. And you have to, when you get into this, there's a lot of sifting through, right? I might raise my voice, but in my previous relationship, we raised our voice, so that was normal. But in her relationship, that raising voice was something worse to come.
It was an indication of something worse.
Of violence to come.
Violence, right?
Yeah, you know.
That's so interesting.
So it's one of those things where it's like you have to be able to look at each situation and say, this is new. There's habits I'm carrying from previous that I might need to adjust for this relationship. She might need to adjust for this. That's what that whole pillow talk was. I believe. I think. Yeah.
That's a really good point. Now, I didn't realize that I would build more baggage over time. I had the opposite conception. I hoped that, because I think most of my baggage comes from my childhood.
Yeah.
And so as I go through relationships and learn to be a better version of myself, because I feel like I'm still carrying forward the problems of my 8-year-old self.
Probably.
Being afraid of certain things, or like, my dad was abusive and an alcoholic, and I carry some of those hang-ups with where I'm like, I don't drink any alcohol, right?
Yeah.
Because he was an alcoholic, and I'm very non-violent because he was violent. And, but now I might be too non-violent, where I need to learn my power, my strength, learn some self-defense, learn to protect those I care about in a physical way if I need to, kind of, right? Because I don't have any of those skills.
Because so the pendulum went all the way one way,
right?
And it stayed there.
And just like you said, you want to be present in a way your father was not.
Yeah.
So usually we learn from our parents. Yeah. But I think sometimes we overcorrect, and we need to find balance.
Absolutely. Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, and that's the thing too. It's like to understand. It's like knowing how far you've gone, but also saying that I needed to get here, but I also need to come back down, because that is to find the balance and to function within your relationships, right? To go all the way here is to be a bit too extreme, right? It serves no absolute purpose to be all the way here.
I agree.
When the world is full of gray. It's not binary, black or white, so there's always, I think so. Like, you have to, like going back to relationships, baggage, I think, is a very negative term, because it signifies that everything is negative that you're coming from. But I feel like there's a lot of experiences that you experience that are not in relation to your new.
I think you're right that, like, so maybe it's that time makes you rigid over time if you don't take steps to remain flexible.
Absolutely.
So over time we learn and we experience things, and then we become, it's like we make more assumptions.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But with every new person, you have to dismantle your assumptions and say, all right, how do I learn about this person from scratch? Because they're coming with a unique history and unique habits, and so am I.
Right.
And we need to just take each other as we are, not as we expect each other to be.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
That's good advice for me for my first relationship, because I'm sure that the first person I date, I will still treat them as if they're somebody I knew. Like, I'll try to box them in. I'll try to stereotype them.
Yeah.
That's natural human way of doing things.
Absolutely.
We try to put people in categories based on past experience. Yeah. So I want to ask, like, what were some early relationship lessons you learned through your life? When did you start dating?
Early relationship is like, okay, so when you're young, it's great because you're going with absolute romance and idealism, right? Life has just started for you, so you believe in everything that is nice and wholesome.
I'm not cynical yet.
You're not cynical, absolutely. And it's beautiful. Like when you, like if you've ever read Khalil Gibran's book,
The Prophet? Yeah, long ago.
Yeah.
My mom had a copy.
Exactly. So when it says like to be in full love, like you jump in, head first, feet first, no hesitation.
You're not holding back because you haven't had your heart broken yet.
Yeah, to truly feel love,
right?
You jump in wholeheartedly, like you reject everybody else. It's about this feeling and it's beautiful. There's nothing like it. Oh, there's nothing like it. And you break up, and that's the other part of it. It's like learning if the relationship is not abusive, if it's a healthy relationship, and the breakup is sour. It's the opposite. Like there's nothing like it. But to recover from it and to say, are you willing to do that again, is a true testament.
Right.
But as you get old, so I love being in love. There's nothing like it. I understand it now. Every relationship is the same, and this is key. When you get into a relationship, understand that it's not guaranteed. Like people think because I put all these things into it, like I buy him dinner, I buy him gifts. You have to do it because you want to, not because you're expected out of the relationship.
Right.
Do it because you want to, like you feel like it. Like I picked up this rose not because she wanted it, because I wanted to give it to her. And how she reacts is up to her. But it felt good when I picked it up, and that is it. It's like I do it because I want to.
Yeah.
But also understand fundamentally, and people, and even with me, it's like every relation. I understand that things will change. We might grow, and it's not guaranteed because I've had a lot of breakups. I didn't see it coming, but that's what it was, and it hurt. It hurt. You had to cry it out. It's like a fever, like when that break. But to pick yourself up and say, you know what, I want to go do this thing again. There's nothing like it. And through those things, it's like every relationship, you learn how you are and how you should learn how you are and how you're not. And I feel like some of the best advice is getting from your ex because they tell you who you are. I have a perceived notion as to who I am, but there's a reality out there that says, like maybe the first ex will say it and you're like, I don't believe it, but then the second ex might confirm what the first ex is, and you're like, you know what, I am a bit rigid, or I am rude, or I am cynical, and those are things I need to change because the consensus is actually right. If those are meaningful relationships, and you take that and you move forward.
And then maybe your third ex will say, oh, you weren't these things, and then you realize, okay, I grew between my second and my third ex.
Yes.
That's progress.
Yes, absolutely. But to process every relationship, that's the other thing, is like process your relationship before you move forward. Because it's like moving from one house to another house and bring every dirt with it into that new house. It's ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. Like, why would you go from one dirty old house to a new house and bring all that dirt? No, you want to start clean, fresh, and that's how you should start with every new relationship. I process, I get rid of all that dirt, everything that's happened that I don't like, and then when I get to the new relationship, I feel great because I've created this new whole house that I'm ready for. I want to live in. I want to be like, and that saying is like, I've changed. I've looked at myself. I'm going to be a bit more healthy. I'm going to share more. I'm going to be a bit more sympathetic. I'm going to be a bit more. I would be more. What's the word? I will participate a lot more in my relationship, whether it's cooking or whether it's planning or those things. I will not be defensive. So you want to move from one relationship to the next, and I think everybody should process before they jump into a new relationship.
Right.
And it's such a negative thing.
What's a negative thing?
Like to go from one relationship straight into another.
Without processing.
Without processing.
Because then you repeat the same mistakes.
Absolutely.
Right.
Right. And you project all that other garbage onto your new partner.
And they deserve better, and so do you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're so selfish. We always think about ourselves, but at the same time, like, would you date you? That's another question. Would you date you? Mm-hmm. A lot of people, like, if you looked at yourself starkly, no, you would not date you. You are not that great.
Yeah.
Right? And why should you expect your partner to be that way? No, that's trash.
Right.
Absolutely. I think that's the key thing. It's like when you look at it, it's like, would you honestly date you? Would you look into the house and like, you can't cook? Would you want somebody who can't cook? No, you wouldn't. Mm-hmm. Like, would you like somebody who's sloppy or somebody who's financially responsible? No, you wouldn't. So why would you expect somebody to love you as that? No.
So be honest with yourself about your own shortcomings.
Absolutely.
Right.
Right. It's like, if I can't date myself, I can't expect somebody else to love me that way. Simple.
But you might be surprised because
some people want to fix you, but then don't, because
that's a bad
thing.
Yeah.
No. You have to be willing to date yourself.
Right.
Right. Like, and if somebody who finds you is willing to date, then that's on them. Right. But don't expect you to be a certain way and terrible and have a lot of shortcomings and expect somebody to prop you up and look at you as you. No, I think it's terrible.
But what if you are working on yourself but you're still a work in progress.
Yeah, we all are work in progress.
That's different from saying.
But there's a baseline.
There's a baseline, but that's different from saying I am broken or I have these shortcomings and I don't want to change them ever.
Yeah.
Meaning, you know, like that saying, you know, if you can't bear me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best, or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's something people tell themselves so they can excuse remaining mediocre.
Yeah, I have a problem with that one. I feel like that's just that. Why should I accept you when you're, you know, when you're not even like that? That's one of those, like, if you truly love me, you'll try to love me at. No. There's a baseline. There's a baseline where that people deserve, and people deserve not to enter as well. Like, your worst should be a healthy worst, not a negative, toxic worst.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like if I'm sad or depressed for 2 weeks, 2 months, or I'm sick, it's my worst. I'm not functioning, because that's the worst. But not if I'm completely being an absolute dick or an absolute horrendous person to my partner. No.
They deserve better then.
They deserve better. You deserve, yeah.
You deserve better as well.
Yeah,
Because imagine,
because
you have to live with yourself.
Because the same concept would be like, if this person a certain way, would you love them at their worst, and especially at the onset before you love them? Would you?
Right.
Right? Could you? Because if you can take that, can you love this person at their worst as well? No, you wouldn't. Like, people like that will not. Like, they will not. It's so self-serving.
Right. So it's a double standard.
It's a double standard, 100%.
So let's get into the meat of beginning to date. So what advice would you give yourself if you were just starting to date? I'm asking you to give me advice, actually.
Be conscious. Be conscious you want to date.
So like, pay attention to it?
No, be conscious. Like, say, no.
Well,
there's two of them. For me right now, it's like being conscious and saying, you know, I'm ready to date.
Okay.
And if you're ready to date, what do you want? What are you willing to date? Like, do you want a casual date? Do you want somebody? What do you want from this dating? Like, do you want to just meet people randomly? Do you want a meaningful date? Does this date progress?
I do want meaningful relationships.
Okay. And then in that sense, like, understand what your values are.
Okay.
Right? And be very clear. And also be clear, like, when those values, not your person's not going to meet all those values. Right?
So I have 2 core values that I've been following for a few years now.
Okay.
And it took me a while to refine them down to those 2. But I think those 2 basically let me derive anything I need in life. So they're curiosity and honesty.
Okay.
And I don't expect curiosity from whoever I'm with long term.
Yeah.
But I do expect honesty from them. And I think curiosity is more like a quirk for me.
Okay.
They'll have their own thing, right?
Okay.
For me, it's just I've noticed curiosity drives me more than anything else in life.
Honesty is about feelings.
Yeah?
Truth is about facts.
Okay, interesting.
Okay.
Honesty is about feelings and truth is about facts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Truth is always about facts. It's like what happened. Truths never change. People, the facts are the facts, right?
Okay.
So people kind of like, oh, you know, and honesty it's about feelings, right? But those two things aren't always representative of the goodness of it. People are like, oh, I want you to be honest with me, so I give you the honest. I actually feel like you are too heavy, or I think you're too overweight, or I think you cry too much. Those are feelings, or those might be facts, but those are what it is. Can you accept that? That's part of the package, right? It's not going to be, oh, you're handsome, you're beautiful, or all those things. No.
Yeah.
There's negatives and positives to it, but that's what it is. So people get those two things misaligned sometimes. It's like with honesty and truth.
So I do believe that honesty is about truth.
Yeah.
Yes, it is also about expressing your feelings, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think that the worst kind of dishonesty that I've experienced is self-deception.
Okay.
And so that's when I'm doing things like wishful thinking, where I reinterpret reality to fit what I hope is true.
Yes.
And I tell myself that's what it is.
Yes.
Like I say, oh, that person rejected me because they weren't good enough. I'm lying to myself to make myself feel better.
Yeah.
That's dishonesty.
Absolutely.
I don't want that.
Absolutely.
So I think good honesty is about making a concerted effort to make my thoughts and feelings match reality over time.
Right.
So it's a constant active effort, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's not just saying I am honest and I'm done. Because I still lie to myself all the time. It's unconscious, it's common. Like, it's a practice. I'm
Yeah.
becoming more honest over time. You make a good point about defining honesty in a relationship, so that when I'm with someone, they clearly know what I mean by honesty.
Yeah.
That, yes, I would want them to share their feelings, even if it
Yeah.
would hurt me.
Yeah.
In the short term, I think in the long term, we would be closer. And
Absolutely.
And it's like we wouldn't be staying with each other for the wrong reasons. Because I think
Yeah.
wasting time
Yeah.
with the wrong person is just as bad as being alone, if
Yeah.
not worse, actually. So, yeah, I think I would just have to communicate that.
To me, all those things fall under the biggest umbrella of communication.
Right. So proactive communication, sharing.
However you want to, but however you want, it's communication. When you have that space,
Yeah.
and I hate that word, but it truly is that. It's like when you create that environment for your person to speak, and they allow you to speak and say, you know what, and they listen, and you listen. Like they listen, you listen, and you talk and you share, right? Regardless how hard, difficult that is, there's nothing like it. That intimacy grows, and there's the intimacy without the sexual, and that is so profound.
And I think that's why I love interviews like this, because it feels like I get to connect with another human being on a deeper level than the superficial.
Yeah,
It's something deeper, and I don't know how to define it. I just know how to feel it.
yeah. Do you need to define it now?
I don't think
Then
so.
that's good.
Because I think I've done it enough that I know that that's what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
So that's all I need. I don't
Yeah.
need a definition.
yeah, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
so I think it's like if there's one thing, it's if the biggest. Even with me, it's like communication is huge. Okay, communication is huge, but also I have to admit to myself, it's like I'm still working on it, right? Like there's situations where I will not be as honest, but I want to be to that point where I'm honest, right? And I need to let my partner know that these are things like, but also too, it's being in those sticky conversations are hard. But these are things, if I'm going to hold myself to that stand and say communication is, I have to be willing to actually engage in those conversations that are hard. Like, whether it's small little arguments with your partner or tough arguments or tough topics, but to be engaged and know the things. It's like if I can talk about these things and be honest about it. Okay, I might want my partner to be able to be that open with, but also I have to be.
So you have to lead by example.
Absolutely.
And for me, part of honesty has been learning to be genuinely vulnerable,
yes.
right? Learning to, because to me, honesty is not trying to bend the facts to make me look good,
Yeah.
right? So staying things as they are, even if it embarrasses me,
Yeah.
just say it anyway.
Yeah.
And I found that people are never as mean to me as I am to myself or as I expect them to be, right? Like
Yes.
it's always better.
Yes.
Like when I'm truly honest and vulnerable, I find that people they come in to try to like catch me in the fall. You know, I don't know how to put it, but
Yep.
and then I find that connects me far better than if I like tried to look strong, but
Yeah.
I'm not strong, you know, or things like that.
Absolutely.
I try to puff up myself. And so that's how I've realized that vulnerability is part of healthy masculinity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What are things, I'll switch this around. So from this conversation, there's masculinity, and there is dating,
And some parenting.
and parenting.
Yeah.
Those three things. Why are those three things so important to you?
So the reason
How do you define yourself?
how do I define myself?
Yeah.
Actually, a friend told me how he defines me. Would that be helpful?
No.
No. How do I define
How do you
myself?
define yourself? Because based on all these interviews,
Yeah.
it's a question you're trying to figure out. So because in order to, because I feel like you want to be here,
Right.
but you're here. So how does this look like?
So how do I get to where I want to be?
Who's Vamsi right here?
Right. So I think I'm afraid.
Okay.
I'm afraid to commit
Okay.
to an uncertain future
Okay.
or an uncertain person, or I'm also afraid to take risks that could lead to rejection.
Okay.
So I'm afraid to ask someone out on a date. I'm afraid to go on a date.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to kiss a girl.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to have sex with someone for the first time.
Yeah.
All of these things, and I think the pattern there that I'm afraid of is all of them have a risk of failure, rejection, disappointing someone else, and basically finding out that I'm bad in some way, right? It's all of these are risks basically.
Yeah.
But I think they have the potential for great fulfillment.
Yeah.
So I think I'm at the point in my life where my cowardice is overshadowed by my aspiration for more meaning in life.
Yeah.
And to actually live the life that I think I was meant to live.
Yeah.
Not the life that I'm accepting because I'm too afraid to go for something.
Everybody's first time is terrible, but it's joyous. There's nothing like it. Like there's that excitement.
It bugs me that I'm so afraid to even kiss someone on the lips or go on a date or because each of these is like kind of a small thing.
Yeah.
But I guess it was never a small thing the first time you did it.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm a little frustrated that I'm starting so late. Because I remember when I stayed home from the prom in high school to play League of Legends.
Yeah.
And so I see the string of choices I made that have led me here.
Yeah.
And I kind of have to accept that this is where I am now.
Yeah.
How can I make the most of it? How can I not act in such a way that I'll regret it a year from now?
Yeah.
Right? How can I sort of take charge of my choices now?
Right.
But I have to, because now I'm approaching the point where I'm realizing time is scarce.
Yes.
But then you're kind of an inspiration to me, because you had a kid at 41.
Yeah.
And you're loving it.
Yeah.
And being a dad is the most fulfilling thing you've done. And
absolutely.
You're putting to use your instincts.
Yeah.
And I actually realized that Marlo was an example, actually, because Marlo trained you that other people's advice is not always good to follow. Because I make the same mistake every day. I get a whole bunch of people's advice.
Yeah.
And then if you ask me what I want, I don't know how to tell you. And I sit down and I ask myself, what do I want? And I don't know how to answer it.
Yeah.
And it's because I've spent so long in the heads of other people that I don't know what my own thoughts are anymore.
You want a relationship.
I want a life partner, yes.
Okay.
I want someone to share the good and the bad with.
Yeah.
And I think from the interviews I've done with people, I think that when they find someone who's a good life partner, it's kind of like a superpower.
Yeah.
It's like life is so much better.
Yeah.
For both people. It's
Absolutely.
like together you're more than just the sum of the parts.
Absolutely.
And I think that's worth striving for.
Absolutely. And sometimes don't overthink it.
Right.
Don't overthink it.
Go with the flow?
Go with the flow.
Okay.
Like sometimes it's like, because if you're looking for perfection sometimes, you'll be disappointed. And sometimes perfection is imperfection.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes perfection is imperfection. Just go with the flow, because there's nothing like a gut instinct. There's nothing like raw feelings. And just remember, like even at this age, like mistakes are part of it. Like mistakes are huge, but you just try and minimize your mistakes as you go along. Yeah, every time you say, okay, you know what, I won't do that the next time. Yeah. Just, I will not think with my dick next time.
Yeah.
Right? Or I will not overthink it. So it's just one of those things where it's like, just go with the flow. This time truly is short.
Yeah.
It's like there's somebody who's looking at you a certain way, just be like, hey, at minimum.
Just say hey.
Just hi. Like there's nothing like a pleasant, like building that confidence to say, you know what? I don't need nothing more than just saying hi. That's it. There's nothing like it. It's like, and then next one is just like, whatever steps that it is, right? So it's not even advice. Like advice is one thing. Like having a conversation is different. It's like what you want, but also too, it's how do you go about it.
Right.
Right? And it's baby steps. First pancake, as we say. First pancake is always going to be terrible. Always.
Yeah.
Right? First pancake, even the best first pancake isn't not as good as the next pancake that follows.
Right.
Right? So
I just need to get started.
Just get started. Like, just be like, and allow yourself to have a broken heart.
Right. Be willing to have my heart broken.
Vulnerable, like you said, vulnerability, right?
Because that's one thing I feel I'm well equipped on, at least, is that life has taught me so far that it's better to trust and be betrayed and then trust again repeatedly than it is to not trust at all.
I think sometimes betrayal is used so frequent by the toxic masculinity portion that people just go automatically, she betrayed me. Or no, a lot of people, that's not it. Like, there's always two tails to that tape. Like, how were you in that relationship?
Were you really the person you could have been? Right?
Yeah, because a lot of men in my circle, like, always feel like they were betrayed. and then as friends, they're absolute dickheads.
Right. So then
Right?
how would they be with their girlfriend?
With
We
their
don't know.
girlfriend, yeah. And you're like, no, you know what? No, there's two tails. You are this way in public.
Right.
How do you think you are in private?
And I think you made a really good point that we shouldn't feel entitled to anything.
Absolutely.
We're not entitled to anything from the other person.
Yeah.
We have to earn it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, let's call it there, Khamis. It was great having you on.
Thank you.
I hope we get to do a follow-up because there's a lot of meat here.
We will. We will. We absolutely will.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I would like to do a 2-hour session. Like once everything's set up, and then we just have a conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
And maybe we should try it indoors with some decent lighting.
Absolutely, we can do all those things. I feel like.
But I'd love to look at this footage. I have a feeling it'll turn out better than I expected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.